And what we're going to do now is see how the door argument is actually really bad news for this side. Because when this side brings up the door thing, they go to a passage that gives us a clear figure of speech. And then Jesus explains that figure of speech. Also in John, Jesus gives a figure of speech about the vine and the branches. And Jesus labels the elements of that figure of speech too. There's the vine dresser, and the branches. Jesus is the vine, God's the vine dresser, and people are the branches. And we have a full video on the vine and the branches. Check that out. It's linked in the description. It's also up here in the card. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out. If you have, share it with friends, because I really like that video and it was one of the earlier ones, so people don't really come across it too often. But back to it, this side has no problem saying that the element of the door in Jesus's metaphor was Jesus. They have no problem saying that the element of the vine is Jesus. They have no problem saying that the element of the vine dresser is God. They have no problem saying that the element of the branches is people. And this side agrees with all that. They both understand how to break apart those metaphors. Jesus is talking about a door. Oh, it's a metaphor. Here's Jesus explaining it. So the door is Jesus. Jesus is talking about a vine. Oh, it's a metaphor. Here's Jesus explaining what the vine is. The vine is Jesus. Jesus is talking about a vine dresser. Oh, it's a metaphor. Jesus explains it. The vine dresser is God. Jesus is talking about branches. Oh, it's a metaphor. Jesus explains it. The branches are people. So the reason why the door passage and the vine passage hurt this side is because when given those passages, this side demonstrates that they actually do know how to take apart a metaphor and put it back together. You take the explanation, you plug it in. Door equals Jesus, vine dresser equals God, branches equal people. So given those passages, this side proves they know how to handle a metaphor. Until you get to John 6. In John 6, Jesus says, "Truly, truly, I say to you, it was not Moses who gave you the bread from heaven, but my Father who gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is he who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world." And the people listening to Jesus said to him, "Sir, give us this bread always." Now, Jesus was not talking about normal everyday bread here. When he says true bread from heaven, this is a figure of speech. Now, some of the people who were listening at this time responded by saying, "Sir, give us this bread always." So they don't seem to realize yet that Jesus is not talking about literal bread here, but they will. Because Jesus goes on to say to them, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me shall not hunger, and whoever believes in me shall not thirst. But I said to you that you have seen me, and yet you do not believe. All that the Father gives me will come to me, and whoever comes to me I will never cast out. For I have come down from heaven, not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. And this is the will of him who sent me, that I should lose nothing of all that he has given me, but raise it up on the last day. For this is the will of my Father, that everyone who looks on the Son and believes in him should have eternal life, and I will raise him up on the last day." So did the people start to understand the bread metaphor now? It kind of seems like they did, because we're told that the Jews grumbled about him because he said, "I am the bread that came down from heaven." They said, "Is not this Jesus, the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know? How does he now say, 'I have come down from heaven'?" So they were grumbling about part of the metaphor. The part they are currently upset with is Jesus claiming to have come down from heaven. But they're about to learn the whole metaphor because Jesus isn't stopping there. He answers them, "Do not grumble among yourselves. No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him. And I will raise him up on the last day. It is written in the prophets, and they will all be taught of God. Everyone who has heard and learned from the Father comes to me. Not that anyone has seen the Father except he who is from God. He has seen the Father. Truly, truly, I say to you, whoever believes has eternal life. I am the bread of life. Your fathers ate the manna in the wilderness, and they died. This is the bread that comes down from heaven, so that one may eat of it and not die. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, he will live forever. And the bread that I will give for the life of the world is my flesh." Now, a couple things there. First of all, this portion of the passage, we have videos on that. You can check them out. They are linked in the description. But secondly, and to the point of this video, remember how Jesus was giving a figure of speech about a door? And then he explained, hey, that's not actually a door that I'm talking about, it's me. Well, here Jesus is talking about bread. And he explains, hey, it's not actually bread I'm talking about, it's my flesh. So the bread that he's talking about in this metaphor is his flesh. Which means if you treat this metaphor like any other metaphor, then you can realize that when Jesus said, if anyone eats of this bread, he will live forever, he was actually saying if anyone eats of Jesus' flesh, he will live forever. A lot of people on this side don't want to make that swap. Why? Who knows? They do it with the door, they do it with the vine, they do it with the vine dresser, they do it with the branches. They do it with any other metaphor. Not this one though. For some reason, they don't want to take Jesus' explanation here. Is it because Jesus' explanation just destroys their position? Probably. But even though they're not doing it, other people were. For instance, Jews who were listening to Jesus at the time. It says, the Jews then disputed among themselves, saying, how can this man give us his flesh to eat? So these Jews realize how metaphors work. They did the exact same thing I just did. They realized Jesus was giving a metaphor here. The bread element is his flesh, as he said. So the statement of, if anyone eats this bread, he will live forever, means if anyone eats Jesus' flesh, he will live forever. And they question that. They say, how can this man give us his flesh to eat? And Jesus goes on to tell them, truly, truly, I say to you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. Whoever feeds on my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise him up on the last day. For my flesh is true food, and my blood is true drink. Whoever feeds on my flesh and drinks my blood abides in me, and I in him. As the living Father sent me, and I live because of the Father, so whoever feeds on me, he also will live because of me. This is the bread that came down from heaven. It's not like the bread the fathers ate and died, because again, it's his flesh. Whoever feeds on this bread will live forever. So that's why the door argument doesn't help this side at all, and it actually shows that this side seems to be in denial. Because while they'll treat all these other metaphors like a metaphor should be treated, they won't do the same for John 6.